Good morning, everyone. I'm recording this video on Saturday afternoon, as I usually do, and I would be outside today, except that suddenly fall is about to arrive. It officially arrives on Tuesday, but given that it's supposed to be in the 40s overnight tonight, I think fall's giving us a little preview of what we can expect. Of course, we continue to pray for those who have been affected by Hurricane Sally. We had our own little experiences, but nothing like they had on the Gulf Coast. And we pray for those in this busy hurricane season, as it's likely that we'll experience more hurricanes, or other countries, island nations in the Caribbean will experience those as well. Today, I especially ask you to pray for our friends, Reggie Davis from St. Timothy's and Doug Bowman from Trinity, both of them at MCV. Reggie was in a car accident several weeks ago, and Doug is believed to have suffered a stroke, but that's currently still being evaluated. But they need our prayers today. Our worship begins with a reading from the 20th chapter of Matthew. Jesus said, "The kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire laborers for his vineyard. After agreeing with the laborers for the usual daily wage, he sent them into his vineyard. When he went out about 9 o'clock, he saw others standing idle in the marketplace, and he said to them, 'You also go into the vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right.' So they went. When he went out again about noon, and at about 3 o'clock, he did the same. And about 5 o'clock he went out and found others standing around. And he said to them, 'Why are you standing here idle all day?' They said to him, 'Because no one has hired us.' He said to them, 'You also go into the vineyard.' When evening came, the owner of the vineyard said to his manager, 'Call the laborers and give them their pay, beginning with the last and then going to the first.' When those hired about 5 o'clock came, each of them received the usual daily wage. Now when the first came, they thought they would receive more, but each of them also received the usual daily wage. And when they received it, they grumbled against the landowner, saying, 'These last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us who have borne the burden of the day and the scorching heat.' But he replied to one of them, 'Friend, I am doing you no wrong. Did you not agree with me for the usual daily wage? Take what belongs to you and go. I choose to give to this last one the same as I give to you. Am I not allowed to do what I choose with what belongs to me? Or are you envious because I am generous?' So the last will be first, and the first will be last." The Gospel of the Lord. Praise to you, Lord Christ. I have a question about high school English. 10th grade, Jeanette Billmond was her name, and Mrs. Billmond was a stickler for teaching us how to diagram sentences there in 10th grade at Midlothian High School. She said it would stand us in good stead for the future. And of course, we all didn't believe that. But you know what? I hear they don't even have to diagram sentences anymore in 10th grade or any grade English. It seems to me, after suffering through that myself, that is not a fair decision. In the same way, I hear that no one has to parallel park anymore when they go to get their learner's permit or a real driver's license. Now, here's my view about those two things. If I had to do it, if I had to diagram sentences for 10th grade English or parallel park perfectly to get my learner's permit at age 15 years and 9 months, well, then everybody else has to do the same thing, even when it's 40 plus years later. You know what I mean. What's fair is fair. But today, Jesus chooses to set that concept right on its head. Actually, it's not just in today's lesson. It's in all the lessons we've been hearing all summer. We heard about the Syrophoenician woman who wasn't even a Jew. It wasn't fair for her to get her child healed, but she did. She asked and she received. And just before this particular gospel lesson, the disciples hear Jesus tell the rich young man to take his wealth and give it away and follow Jesus. The disciples don't understand why this young man's wealth won't get him salvation, because that was the Hebrew understanding of how God works. If you were wealthy, you were already in with God. But Jesus is here implying that that's no longer true. In a world where 2 + 2 = 4, what he is saying now is that 2 + 2 does not equal always 4. And it's what those workers found out. The folks who are the go-getters, out in the marketplace very early looking for work as casual labor, hoping for a job. And here comes the owner of the vineyard looking for help for the day. They are hired, and while they know it will be hot and dirty, they also know that at the end of the day, they will receive their full day's wages. A full day's wages. And when others are subsequently hired during the day, those who were the first, the go-getters, are content to know that having been the early birds, they will get their full day's pay, and the others, well, they're only going to get a partial wage, of course. After all, that is what's fair. That is normally the way things worked back in Jesus' time. And clearly, it's how things work today. We even call the federal law that enforces payment of hourly wages the Fair Labor Standards Act. It's like me and driver's ed. There are things that we just know that are fair in life. And if I had to parallel park, so do you, if you want a driver's license. If we were programming a computer, that's an if-then statement. If you want the license, then you must parallel park. It's logical. That's why it's a programming statement. So is, if you work 8 hours, then you get a full day's pay. If you work less than 8 hours, then you get less than a full day's pay. If you want a driver's license, then you must be able to parallel park. And if you want to pass 10th grade English with Jeanette Billman, then you must be able to diagram that sentence. Jesus, however, never had to parallel park, nor did he have to diagram any sentences. That doesn't seem fair. And we don't know that he knew anything about if-then programming statements. But what he does know about is the truth. And the story that he tells us lets us know what the truth it is. All the workers, no matter when they arrived, no matter how hot it was, no matter how hard they worked and how dirty they got, or how many baskets of grapes they picked. They were all to get the same wage. Jesus knew nothing about modern day merit systems where you earn what you get. Actually, when you think about it, merit systems as we understand them today are not so modern. Lots of folks over many centuries have spent bundles of money trying to buy their way into the Lord's favor. Build a cathedral, put in a stained glass window, build a charity hospital. But earning our way into God's favor is nothing that you or I can do. And we really don't need to worry about earning our way into a full day's pay of the laborer. Because you see, it's not what we've done, but what the owner of the land has done that gets us a full day's pay. Nothing we've done, nothing we could ever possibly do, will ever get us paid at all. It is the generosity of the landowner to pay as he chooses. That's what gets us paid. And if he chooses to pay a full day's wage to everyone who showed up, no matter when they showed up, that's his decision. Whether they were the earliest risers or the workers who wandered in at the very last minute at 5 p.m. That's really good news for all of us, for all of humanity. We have a God who not only chose to live our life as the incarnate Jesus, but chose in the living of that life to make it better than we've ever known it to be. God chooses to accept us fully, no matter when we show up for work. And that's the point of this story. It is God's decision, not yours and not mine. Now, I have to admit that it's taken me years, decades even, to get to the place where I can seriously consider for myself what God has to say to all the people of God in this lesson. And other stories like it, especially the prodigal son. I've been brought up and acculturated in a culture where what I have has come to me by right, by my own labor and my own effort. I think that's true of all of us, don't you? The concept of grace as something that is freely given by God, not anything we've earned or acquired by birthright, is a concept, a religious concept, that is truly very difficult for most people. Because what else do we think? It's mine, not yours. We are a people who value our individualism. So I'd like to tell you a story about a different kind of culture. A Christian culture that suggests maybe we ought to be living a different way. Maybe we ought to put on new glasses and become the new people we need to be Christian and to understand just how freely grace is offered to everyone. Not just me and not just you. John Westerhoff was an Episcopal priest who did a great deal of work around faith with children and how they came to faith. He told a story one time about being called in to Episcopal missions, which worked with Native Americans somewhere out west. And the teachers who were working with the children were shocked by the morals among the children with whom they worked. He was told that they cheated constantly, and the teachers couldn't make them stop. So he sat down with the children and asked them, why? What were they doing? Why did they all look on each other's papers during tests? They told him this: if someone in the tribe knows, he should tell everyone who doesn't know it. If someone in the tribe doesn't know, he should go ask someone who knows. Westerhoff realized that he had come to experience a culture with a very different orientation than his own. What we have been taught is cheating. These Native American children considered to be cooperation. With that in mind, today's a good day to ask ourselves if we are regularly, perhaps, the first laborers in the vineyard who begrudge the rest their wage. We all have a problem, and you see, it's all about perspective. It's how we've been raised. If we consider that grace is something that's available only in limited quantities, like a bar of gold, for example, then it's come to pass that Jesus is teaching us that our math is all wrong. If we think we can earn God's grace, then we have to relearn that lesson. I bet you didn't realize that God invented new math, right? 2 and 2 does not necessarily equal 4. 2 plus 2 instead equals all the grace that you and I together could ever need. And for that, we can all thank God. Amen.